The other word that I hear a lot with LeBron is, well, he quit that game. And he quit in Boston. I remember Dan Gilbert, his owner, said, well, he quit against Boston. Then you went and looked at the numbers, and it was 28, 13, 10. It's like, dude, that's not, if that's quitting, that's, hell, I'd quit every night. Like, let's last night, LeBron, like a James Harden, just kind of disengaged. And that's what I would call it. Emotionally, just disengaged. You can call it what you want. But I would, for the people that think he quit, all right, I'm not going to yell at you, but never forget this. Michael Jordan quit the sport for a year and a half. He quit never gave us...
For a very different reason.
No. It's never been clarified, and he's never clarified it. There was gambling, which I thought was totally unfair against him. There was a lot of discussion it was gambling. I refuse to believe that. I think that's... Now, Michael liked to gamble, but there was an overriding narrative for years is gambling debts. I think that's totally unwarranted and unfair. You can gamble. I mean, Michael would gamble on cigar smoking, golf, basketball, legendary gambling poker trips on their team flights. But people said it was his dad's death. They said it was gambling. Other people said, and this is what I've heard more than anything, it was a combination of many things, and it was fatigue. Whatever the reason is, and there's no weakness to it, Michael felt it could have been his love for baseball. Michael always said his father loved baseball. Whatever the reason is, Michael left the sport for a year and a half. LeBron left the sport last night for an hour. So I'm always cautious about he quit this, he quit that, he quit this. And never forget, I've always said this, when LeBron James left Cleveland, the decision which made everybody so angry, I know this as fact. I know this as absolute fact because I know Maverick Carter. Maverick Carter is LeBron's, I think, closest friend. They didn't know 48 hours before. Stephen A. Smith broke the story. Stephen A. Smith told me to my face because I asked him. Stephen A. Smith said, I didn't know 28, 30 hours in advance. We destroyed LeBron James. But LeBron came down to the last day. People I'm connected to who would know didn't know. And if Stephen A. Smith did know and he was close to the story, he would have reported it. It was the hottest story in the country for like a month. So LeBron didn't know. When Michael quit basketball, he had a feeling he was going to a year in advance. How do I know that? It's been published. His athletic trainer was Tim Grover. And Michael Jordan told Tim Grover a year before Michael left. And he gave the Bulls no heads up. He told him, get me in baseball shape. So we've always been really tough on Michael. Michael leaves a sport. Knew a year out he was considering it. Pass. LeBron quits for an hour, has a bad quarter, has a bad half, leaves as a free agent because his organization can't get him one all-star in 5 drafts, 6 drafts, 7 drafts, and we beat him up. My point being, we have decided we just like Michael more. We've made that decision. His shoe campaign, his dress, his appearance, his looks, his flair, we've already made a decision. And what happens when people do that, you're going to really be tough on the rival of that person. So I would say this, I've always tried to be fair on this, is that LeBron James, and I once interviewed former President Barack Obama, and I remember asking him a question, and it got the longest response of the 2 interviews I did with him at ESPN. Because you get like 8 minutes with the president. That's all they give you. And the second time he went 12 and a half. And he went 12 and a half because he gave me a long answer to a question. And I said to the president at the time, you're the only president who has dealt with the vile anger of social media, Twitter and Facebook. How does it land for you? And he extrapolates and he goes into detail, meaning he'd thought about it. Michael never dealt with Twitter. Michael didn't deal with a basket-by-basket comparison. LeBron has 13, 14 years, top of the world, awful shot-to-shot social media, harsh, vile hate. He's been in that hate cylinder. And maybe last night, I'm just guessing, maybe it's just like, man, I got to disconnect here. Maybe he just quit. He did whatever the word is. But you got to remember, if you were at the top of your industry in America, and it's an industry that's televised, Michael left the sport to get a break, whatever that reason is. And I don't fault him for it, whatever the reason is. The death of his father, I don't believe it was gambling, fatigue, his love of baseball, whatever it is, he needed a break. What if LeBron needed a quarter-and-a-half break? Now, Charles Barkley and Shaq said this last night, and my takeaway is this is probably what we're talking about here.
In fairness, this was a perfect letdown game. You beat them by 30, you beat them by 40, you're up by 50, you're coming home, they're missing their best player. This, I can understand. I'm not saying, I did not think the Cavs was going to lose, but this was a perfect letdown situation.
This is actually good for the Cavs, because they had a 10-game, 11-game winning streak. This is good for them. Now they can, get refocused because they were not engaged. They weren't playing well, and they relied on the jump shot way too much. When you're at home, you always have to be in attack mode, and they definitely were not in attack mode. They fell in love with the three ball, but this is definitely good for them because now they're going to wake up.
Now, here's something else to consider. Now, Christine knows music way better than I do. So, generally, and you see this with actors, like Tom Hanks will do a series, or Ryan Gosling will do a series of like 3 or 4 movies. And like for 3 years, Ryan Gosling doesn't take, a month off. And you see this a lot in Hollywood where an actor gets hot or an actress gets hot and they do like bang, 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 bang. And then they disappear for a couple years or they do much less work. You see this in music where, Beyonce can have huge album, and then they disappear for, 18 months and they go to San Tropez. LeBron doesn't get that. He doesn't get the privacy in the offseason. It's just, number one, think about this. We only give our presidents 8 years because we think after 8 years, that's enough. Like LeBron's double that with basketball. And so if he occasionally lays an egg, I'm okay with it. Everybody has a right to mental fatigue. And there's never really been clarity with Michael. Some said his father's death. Some said gambling, which I thought was cheap. There was his love of baseball. He really, truly loved it. Like Tebow, it's his first love, blah, blah, blah. Whatever it is, it's fine. But he took a break. And that's okay. And we've never held it against him. So I'm not going to hold a bad quarter-and-a-half against LeBron. I think it kind of illustrates his absolute value where Cleveland, with all these good players, can't even beat an Isaiah Thomas-less Celtics unless LeBron's great. I knew LeBron was valuable. I didn't think he was that valuable. That they can't even beat Marcus Smart? God. Seriously, LeBron has to score 30 for them to beat this team? You've been telling me how bad the East is. They can't beat him unless LeBron's great. Doesn't that tell you his value? Whether it's football, basketball, or baseball, doesn't matter, whatever sport you love. Whatever sport is your